Lange bevor es den Begriff Influencer gab, da gab es sie. Und nein, sie hat keine Werbung für Lippenstift gemacht oder für Mode. Nein, sie ist Influencerin für die gute Sache, für den Erhalt von unserem Planeten, für die Lebewesen auf unserem Planeten und ganz an vorderster Front für die Schimpansen. Sie hat unzählige Dokumentarfilme selber gedreht, war aber auch selbst Teil von Dokumentarfilm. Zuletzt gab es einen großen Film, der ihren Namen als Titel hatte. Jane hieß dieser Film. Den kann man übrigens auch im Stream bewundern, wenn Sie Disney Plus haben oder aber auch über Amazon oder als DVD kann man das auch noch kaufen. Kann ich wirklich nur empfehlen, denn in diesem Film gibt es auch unveröffentlichtes Material, das sie im Laufe ihres Lebens gesammelt und das noch nie gezeigt worden ist, jetzt in diesem Film zu sehen. Sie ist eine mutige, auch medienerfahrene Frau. Sie setzt sich nicht nur für den Dschungel, für unsere Umwelt ein, sondern auch sie kümmert sich um Jugendliche und um Jugendarbeit. Sie ist eine Wissenschaftlerin, sie ist eine Medienfrau, vor allem aber ist sie eine Umweltaktivistin und ich hoffe, sie kann uns jetzt hier sehen. Ich willkomme Dr. Jane Goodall. Good evening.
Good evening.
Dr. Jane Goodall, or shall I better address you Dame Goodall? How would you like to be addressed? Dame Goodall?
Jane Goodall, Dr. Jane, I don't mind.
Okay, wonderful. Because you were knighted by Queen Elizabeth, I think 15 years ago, for your work, for your outstanding work throughout your life, and I'm wondering, where do we reach you today?
What? I'm sorry.
Where do we reach you? Where are you right now?
Well, I've been grounded in my ancestral home in Bournemouth, England, since the beginning of the pandemic. Luckily, I was here when everything shut down. And it's a family home that I share with my sister and her family. So it's where I grew up.
That is very rare for you to be actually at home in England and your ancestral home. You spent days, like 300 days a year, I was told, on airplanes and in Tanzania and around the world to teach us about how to preserve our planet. How do you feel right now being stuck in England?
Well, at first I was frustrated and angry because I have a message to take around the world that I feel is important. Then I realized that this wasn't helping at all. So with a small team of people from the Jane Goodall Institute, we created Virtual Jane. And Virtual Jane has been busier than I have ever been in my entire life. It's interviews, podcasts, webinars, Skype, Zooms. It's giving lectures. It's sending out video messages. It's, of course, keeping up with email. It's writing articles. And one day blends into the next, to the next. There's no such thing as a weekend. And it's just day after day after day. And it's very exhausting. But the bright side, I've reached millions more people than I could have had I been on the road. And in many, many more countries. So the message has actually got out further, but it's not quite the same as in person.
This is astounding. I mean, literally, I won't mention like your age by now, but you've been around for quite some time. Actually, like you have been witnessing the rise of electronic media, of the radio broadcasting, of television, of the internet. Can you describe how like media has changed for you and your work over the time?
Well, as I've been on this planet 86 years, it's changed a lot. So when I was growing up, TV wasn't invented. There was nothing like social media, no cell phones. There were no, we when I first went to Gombe, everything was done by hand, handwritten notes. We communicated by mail unless it was very important, and then it was a telegram, but that was expensive, so we didn't use that much. And of course, gradually over the years, things have changed so dramatically. Not just in the media, but I mean, when I was growing up, the thought of somebody walking on the moon was pure science fiction. And now we've done that and so much more. So the changes that I've seen, it's really amazing, absolutely amazing.
You just said it yourself. It is kind of exhausting what you're
I'm
doing.
Sorry, can we tell the technician I can't hear very well?
Oh,
it's very
okay.
faint.
We'll try to fix that. Yes, I hope you can hear me now, Ms. Goodall.
Yes, now that's much better.
Wonderful. Okay. You just mentioned it yourself. It is kind of exhausting, the media world that we're living in right now. Do you sometimes wish yourself back in the good old days of just broadcasting, just radio, television?
Well, when I wish myself back anywhere, I wish myself back to the first years that I spent in Gombe with the chimpanzees. Those were absolutely, without question, the best days of my life. Not only learning about the chimpanzees, but also, learning about the rainforest, spending hours on my own in the rainforest, learning how everything was interconnected and how each little species had a role to play in this wonderful web of life, and having a sense of spiritual connection with nature. So, as I say, those are the days I wish myself back to. And do I wish myself back to the days of 300 days a year traveling around the world? Well, I don't know. I mean, I miss my friends. I miss the contact. I miss the nice evenings we used to have, drinking a whiskey or some wine. But on the other hand, I feel that I'm accomplishing a lot by being here.
You certainly do, and you make use of media like no one else. Certainly not of your age. How about these things that we all are equipped today, like these mobile devices that everyone is carrying with her or with him, and getting a glimpse of the world delivered right into the palms of our hands. Do you think this is a good thing, or do you sometimes are worried that we are getting lost in information overload?
Well, it depends how we use them. I don't have one. I've always refused to have a cell phone. I'm probably one of the few people in the world. I do actually have one, but it's the old little clamshell type. I've now been given a very, very fancy new iPhone, but that's just for recording. Sometimes I'm recording for a documentary or something. So I have that up in my little kind of makeshift office, which is a bedroom. It's up in the eaves. It's absolutely tiny. So it's very difficult for me to get to where I'm sitting now without knocking everything over. There's microphones, there's a light here. It's quite funny, and I think most people are very surprised to see where I'm working. But anyway, to your question, I think it's very unfortunate that children are so divorced from the natural world very often and spending so much time on these iPhones and doing video games. And it's desperately important, especially for children, but all of us, to make a reconnection with the natural world. And I say especially for children because when a small child gets out into nature, you see how fascinated they are, how interested, how absorbed they become. And so they learn about nature. They learn about the wonder of a caterpillar changing into a butterfly. They learn about the fall of the leaves and the new shoots coming up. And it's when you love nature that you will grow up to protect it. And if we don't, then it's pretty bad luck for future generations because we're destroying this planet so fast.
You yourself have been in the front line fighting for preserving our planet and the animals. You had to overcome a lot of hurdles, a lot of, like stubborn people, a lot of people who didn't believe in your cause. Today we're facing a media reality where like people are fighting, different truths. They claim that climate change is a hoax. They claim that that the facts are basically not facts, and they're talking about fake news. And there's this battle about what is true and what not. How do you convince people that we actually have a duty here on this planet? How do you make them being interested in facts rather than just, rumors?
Well, first of all, I can tell people that because I've been so long on the planet, I've been around long enough to see the change. And because I've been able to travel around the globe, I've seen the effects of climate change. I've stood in Greenland and watched the ice melting. I've seen sea levels rise so that people have to leave their island homes because they're not habitable at high tide. I've seen the terrible results of the more frequent hurricanes and typhoons. I've seen the awful length of the terrible droughts, and I've seen the wildfires and the aftermath of wildfires. So for the very first time on record, there has been fire in the Arctic Circle, which is an absolute proof that the climate is rising. We're trapping the heat of the sun with our emissions of carbon dioxide, mostly from fossil fuels, but also methane gas. And that comes from, a lot of it comes from agriculture, the industrial agriculture, and especially the intensive animal farming, the factory farms, where all these animals are producing methane.
Since our world is moving more and more digital, and you just said, like the first-hand experience actually does the job, how can we help to preserve like that feelings that we're having regarding our world around us, and not to see it as a kind of a video game, and once we destroy this planet there will be another one or another one. So how do you address people who do not believe in your cause and who do not believe in climate change? Is there a trick that you can tell us how to make people think?
Well, I try and change people's minds by telling stories. But when you find a president who hears from his own scientists about the effects of climate change, the economic effects that are likely to hit America in a few years hence, and he just listens to them for 10 minutes and then looks into their eyes and says, "I don't believe you," well, that's a person whose mind doesn't want to be changed. Some people don't want to believe in climate change because they're desperate to carry on with business as usual. And that means subordinating the protection of the natural world for the future in order to have unlimited economic development, which doesn't make sense on a planet with finite natural resources. And already in some places we're using them up faster than nature can replenish them. And it's our absolute disrespect of the environment and animals that has led to this pandemic, which of course has caused suffering, death, loss of jobs, economic chaos, affected everybody all around the planet. But at the same time, it's also led to climate change. And so we are part of this natural world. Some people seem to think that we can live separate from it in a bubble. We cannot. We are dependent on it for, air and water. And as we continue to destroy it, so the planet is suffering. And millions of people are suffering, especially those living in poverty. They feel the results of climate change. They know about the devastation of hurricanes and typhoons and fires and droughts. And so we see not only people fleeing from violence and war, but now increasingly people fleeing from the results of climate change because they can no longer carry on with their way of life in their homelands.
Since you brought him up, Donald Trump, let's talk about a different subject. When I read about your life and watched your documentaries, I thought about, shall I ask you about chimpanzees or primates? And then I thought, no, there's enough information about that online. Why don't we talk about men, like man. You had to fight your way through a very chauvinist world throughout your life. You had to fight the academia who ridiculed you. You had to fight against, men who owned media and kind of talked disrespectful about you. So what was the hardest struggle that you had to overcome in your professional and personal life regarding being a woman fighting her way to where you are today?
Okay, well, before I answer, could you move a little bit to your left? No, the other way, because I can't see your face.
Oh, that's
further.
Oh, that doesn't matter.
Now I can see half of you.
It's
I
not
do
that
because
important.
I like to talk to you.
Oh,
Move a tiny bit.
finally. Yes? You see me now?
That's it. Now I can see you.
Now you can see me, okay.
There's a square of myself in the middle.
Oh,
no,
I
this
see.
is perfect.
All right. Okay.
This is perfect.
It's lovely to see you.
Okay. Well, first of all, when I was 10 years old, I was already dreaming of going to Africa, living with wild animals and writing books about them. And everybody told me that was not possible because we didn't have money. But basically, I was just a girl, and girls didn't do that sort of thing. But luckily, I had a fantastic mother. She's here behind me. She's always looking over my shoulder. She supported me, and she told me that if I really wanted to do this, I would have to work really hard, take advantage of every opportunity, and then if I didn't give up, maybe I'd find a way. So she set me off on the right path. And none of my family had this attitude towards women. Like my grandmother and mum's sister, both of them were ahead of their time in a way. And then when I finally saved up money and got to Africa and met Louis Leakey, my mentor, I was so lucky because he wanted a woman. He said he thought that maybe women had more patience and might be better in the field. And so being a girl back then stood me in good stead. And then when finally Louis Leakey told me I had to go to Cambridge and get a PhD, even though I hadn't been to college, because I would need to get money for myself. Well, then, when I first described that chimpanzees could use and make tools, something it was thought only humans could do, that's when the first, why should we believe her? She's only a girl. And, she hasn't even been to college. But because Hugo van Lauwijk, who became my husband, was sent by the National Geographic to film the chimpanzees, then people had to believe, A, my detailed description, and B, his film. And then when, Jane's only getting money and stuff to do this research because she's a geographic cover girl, and she's only a geographic cover girl because she's got good legs. Well, if that happened today, we'd be pretty jolly annoyed. But back then, the world was different. And we didn't have this attitude towards the two sexes that we have today. And so my response was simply, if my legs helped me to get money to do what I'm passionate to do, then good for my legs. And actually, if you saw that movie Jane that came out recently, they were nice legs.
I'm sure there were. Is today's world, do you think there is hope? Do you think that the message that you transport is being heard by enough people, or are you worried that in this whole kind of echo chambers that we are confronted with, that your message will get lost over the days and years to come?
Well, at the moment it's getting bigger, but I do believe that if we carry on with business as usual after this pandemic, then there's not much hope for the future. But we've got this window of time, and we have to get together. I think that COVID-19 pandemic has given a lot of people pause to think, and a lot of people are talking about we need to have a new relationship with the natural world. We need to think of a new green sustainable economy. And my reasons for hope, first of all, we can use social media in a very positive way to reach many, many people. And this is all because of this amazing intellect we have. So at the same time, science is coming up with many innovative new technologies like solar and wind to allow us to live in greater harmony with nature. So the human brain is one. Nature is amazingly resilient and forgiving. So places we've totally destroyed or polluted can be restored. Very often just by leaving them alone, nature will come back and once again begin to support biodiversity. And next is the young people. We have this program, Roots and Shoots. It's a program of the Jane Goodall Institute. It's growing fast across Germany. It's for young people from preschool, university, and everything in between. And the main message is each one of us makes an impact on the planet every single day. And we have a choice as to what kind of impact we make. And the Roots and Shoots groups choose 3 projects, one to help people, one to help animals, one to help the environment. And there's lots of tree planting going on and cleaning up environments, removing invasive species, collecting up litter, recycling, and so many ideas and so much positivity in all these young people. That's very inspiring, along with the incredible people who tackle what seems impossible and just won't give up, and so often succeed. So for all those reasons, we do have hope, but we do need to get together now and take action.
Let's stick with the young generation, if we may. Since you raised so much hopes in the next generation that is here to come. We as a media conference here, we have many young people watching us right now who want to become a journalist, who want to become a reporter, who want to follow your footsteps. Can you give us these young people an advice how to fight your way to stay stubborn as you were? Can you especially address young women today how to survive in a shark tank called the media?
Well, first of all, you have to really want to do what you're doing, and you have to work really hard. It's all the advice my mother gave me. And if you're passionate and you really want to do it, then somehow or other you're going to find a way. But for any young people listening, male or female, it doesn't really matter. If you want to become a reporter, a journalist, then one thing that's really, really important, I think, we definitely need the media to report the bad news. I mean, somebody's got to hear it. But at the same time, there's not enough media space given to all these amazing things, all these restoration programs, animals rescued from the brink of extinction, people helping each other as they did during the pandemic, a community spirit, people rising up out of poverty and making successes of their life. So for you young people listening, it depends on you. It depends on your motivation, your passion, your preparedness to work hard. And so if you really want to do that, then you're going to succeed.
As for the grown-ups here at this conference and legacy media, the media, as you know, is getting disrupted. Journalists are becoming more and more an endangered species themselves. How can we deal with this? Do you have any advice what you would suggest we can do as journalists, as media, in order to maintain as I think, important voice in this world?
Well, I don't think that's a question you can just answer like that, because it depends which country you're in. And in some countries, you know, the media's voice is stifled. In some countries, presidents say, I don't want to answer that question, I'm not interested in you, you're a bad reporter, you're telling lies, or what you're printing is fake news. And in a situation like that, I suppose in some countries you just have to persist and be dogged and try and find your way around it. But in countries where the press is persecuted, and there are many such countries, imprisoned or disappeared, then I don't know. I'm just so impressed by those brave reporters who continue to report the truth, even when they face retaliation from the government. So that's why it's important that, you know, if you want to do this work, then you've really got to be passionate about it.
And that's coming from someone who really had her share in the struggles and fighting the media, fighting governments, and trying to convince the people rather than actually fighting in like changing their thoughts, changing their minds, and addressing new policies all over the world. Jane Goodall, this has been really delightful talking to you. If there is one thing that our viewers can maybe help you in your good fight, what do you wish the people to do as passing on your legacy?
Well, first of all, I wish that everybody realizes that their lives matter, that they do make a difference every day. They may feel helpless and hopeless, but as millions of people begin making ethical choices in what they buy, how was it made? Did it harm the environment? Was it cruel to animals, like the intensive farms? Is it cheap because of child slave labor or unequitable wages? If people start making ethical choices, which they can't do if they're living in poverty, so we have to alleviate poverty, and reduce our unsustainable lifestyles, many of us, then I think, you know, well, I shouldn't probably say this, but I wish that people would look up the work that we're doing in the Jane Goodall Institute. I wish the young people would look up what we're doing in Roots and Shoots. And I only say that because what we're doing is making a difference. It's making a big difference in many countries. So, you know, if you don't like the idea of the Jane Goodall Institute, join another organization that's working to make this a better world. But basically, do something. Every day, try to do something to leave the world a little bit better than when you woke up.
You can also check out your new book that is available now. Jane is out on DVD, or if you have Disney Plus, you can check it out there. And I really recommend this documentary. It's just such a joy. Yes, we're regarding the time. Ladies and gentlemen at home, the scientist, the filmmaker, the legend. Thank you, Dr. Jane Goodall.
Thank you very much.